I loved the environment that I grew up in. I absolutely loved it. I looked forward to being at church every week with my friends, and we were on fire for God. That's another one of those phrases that we use often that you may or may not know immediately what it means. In fact, to be quite honest, when I would visit other youth groups, a lot of the time, and they would launch into icebreakers and games and all of these things, I was like, another icebreaker? I mean, my close friends know how I feel about games in general, but I was like, what are we doing? We could be encountering the Lord. I didn't get it. When the rest of the kids at these other youth groups often were trying to skip out of youth group to go to the basketball court and hang out and do whatever they were doing, I was like, what are you doing? Let's lean into the Lord together. See, what had happened to me, and there's nothing wrong with icebreakers. There's nothing wrong with games, contrary to how I feel about board games. What had happened to me was God had really gotten a hold of my heart at a young age. And to be quite honest, he wasn't letting go. In fact, I'm sorry to share this with my parents in the room, but there was at one point I got in trouble, and my parents had to ground me from going to church. Because to be quite honest, there was nothing left to take away. That's what I spent my time doing. I was at church. I was in the house of God. I was with my friends worshiping Jesus. And I loved being with God and with his people. But actually, if I were to be totally honest at that point in my life, I think it would be better said this way. I loved being with God with people. I loved spending time in worship and in prayer and reading his word in church and in small groups, but it actually took me a while to fall in love with being alone with God. It didn't come right away. I loved the gathering. I loved when everyone was there together to worship Jesus, but it didn't really get personal for me for a while. In fact, to be quite honest, it got really personal for me after a tragedy.